They had been watching us for 11 days before we let them think we hadn't noticed. I know because I was the one who pulled the first drone off the passive array. A little thing, no bigger than a fist Vethrak manufacture. We learned later, though at the time it read as an anomalous return that Lieutenant Commander Price almost flagged as debris. I caught the pattern in the drift. It wasn't drifting. It was holding station at exactly 42,000 kilometers off the convoy's port flank, tucked in the radar shadow of the ore hauler Meridian Cross, moving in perfect lockstep with her. That takes intent, that takes patience, that takes, I thought then, a predator that knows how to wait. I didn't know the word for them yet. Nobody did. We'd had 3 prior contacts at the edge of what used to be the Karath corridor, single ships, quick withdrawals, no communications, no fire. They left holes in our sensor logs the size of stadiums and were gone before we could triangulate. High Command had a designation for them, some alphanumeric string I never bothered to memorize. Down in the squadron spaces, we just called them the Hunters. It seemed right. The way they moved, the way they watched without declaring themselves, that was predator behavior. Every species that's ever evolved fangs learns to stalk before it strikes. They'd cataloged the convoy. That was the conclusion our intelligence section reached after we swept up the second drone and then the third. 11 days of observation. They had vectors, mass estimates, acceleration curves, a full tactical picture of what looked to them, what we needed to look to them like 6 civilian haulers making a routine transit. The Meridian Cross, the Callaway's Reach, 4 others, slow, fat, unarmed, predictable. What they couldn't see was the Ironmount. The carrier was running dark 48,000 kilometers back. Her entire battle group pulled into MCON silence, no active sensors, no drive signatures above the background thermal of the void, every external system throttled to 0. 11 ships. The Ironmount herself displaces 4.2 million tons. She carries 2 full wings, 800 crew, point defense systems that can track objects at 60 kilometers and hit them at 40. The escorts on her flanks were nothing to sniff at either. 2 Ardent-class destroyers, a pair of Covenant-class cruisers, the rest a mix of frigates and fast-attack craft that could hit flank speed in under 90 seconds. None of that showed on any sensor in the Karath corridor for 11 days. My fighter was in the air before the Vethrak made their move. Standard protocol. The carrier kept a 4-ship CAP airborne around the clock during the waiting period, close enough to the convoy to respond, far enough from the carrier to avoid any sensor cross-signature. I'd drawn the 200 to 0600 shift. My wingman, a young lieutenant named Carroll who never said more than was necessary, had the number 2 slot. The other pair was 80 kilometers to our south, working a lazy racetrack pattern in the cold. We were 3 hours into the shift when the contact came. Not a ship, a hail. The Vethrak opened comms on a frequency we'd left deliberately unencrypted, the convoy's standard civilian channel, the kind of thing a flock of freighters would use. Their signal came in 2 parts. The first was mathematical, a sequencing code that our translators would take 6 hours to fully decode. The second was something our systems read with no translation required. A targeting lock, opened simultaneously across all 6 haulers, solid and unambiguous. In human terms it meant, we see you. You are not going anywhere. Their ships came out of stealth as they opened the lock. I saw them on my scope first, 4 vessels, the largest roughly the size of our destroyers, all of them riding in a loose Predator's crescent ahead of the convoy. They were built narrow. Sharp angles, elongated prows, the kind of silhouette that evolves when a species has spent 100,000 years perfecting the geometry of the chase. They were, by any reasonable assessment, faster than anything in our convoy escort by a significant margin. My hand was already on the throttle when Commander Osai's voice came through the battle net, flat and unhurried. Ironmount breaks stealth, all units execute. It happened in a single pulse. 11 ships dropping every active MCON measure at the same instant, sensors going hot, drive plumes lighting off, point defense radars sweeping the volume like someone throwing every light switch in a dark building simultaneously. At 48,000 kilometers with our optics at full gain, I saw the Iron Mount's running lights come alive. She is not an elegant ship. She is a flat, brutal slab of armored plating and weapons blisters and sensor arrays. 4 kilometers of human engineering built without any concession to aesthetics, because nobody ever asked a carrier to be beautiful. She came out of the dark like something that had always been there, waiting to be seen. I watched my scope. The Vethrak formation held its crescent shape for 4 seconds. In a human crew, that might mean controlled response. In the Vethrak, I'm told, 4 seconds is a very long time for a predator to be still. Then they fired. One shot. Their lead vessel put a high-energy kinetic round into the Iron Mount's port bow. It was, and I say this having reviewed the gun camera footage more times than I can count, a probe. Not a killing blow. A test. The kind of strike that tells you whether the thing in front of you flinches. The Iron Mount did not flinch. She absorbed the hit on her forward armor belt, which is 3 meters of layered composite built to stop exactly that, and her point defense opened up on the Vethrak lead vessel half a second later while her mass drivers were still spinning up. Osai's voice again. Strike package, go. I pushed the throttle to the stop and rolled into my attack vector. What followed was not a battle in any meaningful sense. It was a demonstration. My wing had 16 fighters, and we came in on the Vethrak lead vessel from 3 axes with full ordnance loads. The Vethrak had built their ships for speed and for hunting things that ran. They had not built them for standing inside a coordinated strike package, while a carrier's mass drivers ranged them, and 4 frigates moved to close their escape corridor. Their point defense was reactive, individual, designed for picking off threats one at a time. We don't attack one at a time. The lead vessel took 11 minutes to lose propulsion and 17 to stop returning fire. The Iron Mount's guns finished her before Carol, and I had even completed our turn for a second pass. The other 3 Vethrak ships were already pulling back. Not fleeing. I want to be precise about that because it matters. They didn't scatter. They didn't break formation in panic the way a prey animal will when the trap closes. They withdrew in sequence, the trailing ship covering the second covering the leader, all of them pulling back with the deliberate geometry of something that was recalculating rather than running. Predators. Even in retreat, predators. They were gone in under 4 minutes. The corridor went quiet. I brought my fighter around and set course for the Iron Mount's recovery bay, and for a long time nobody said anything on the battle net. That's unusual. After an engagement, there's normally a chatter of battle damage assessments, casualty reports, comms traffic between the command section and the escorts. This time there was very little of that. We'd taken 1 hit and it had left a divot in the bow plating and cracked 2 sensor mounts. No casualties. No fires. The Iron Mount's medical bay treated 3 crew for minor injuries from the impact vibration and released them within the hour. I trapped aboard and taxied to my parking spot and sat in the cockpit for a while after the ground crew pulled the chocks. Not because I was processing anything in particular, more because the silence seemed like the right response to what had happened, and getting out of the seat felt like rushing it. 11 days they'd watched us. They'd mapped the convoy with precision instruments and infinite patience, tallied the mass and the speed and the thermal signatures, and concluded they understood what they were looking at. They'd built a complete picture of their prey. Then they opened their weapons locks, ready to take what they'd decided was theirs, and the dark behind the herd turned on. I've thought about that a lot in the years since. What it must have been like for them, in those 4 seconds between our ships going hot and their decision to fire. To watch your sensor screens fill with contacts that weren't there a moment before. To feel the weight of 11 warships where there had been empty space. To understand, in that compressed and terrible interval, that the herd had a shepherd, and the shepherd had been watching them watch the herd for 11 days, and had said nothing and done nothing, and simply waited. We'd catalog them too. They knew that now. Whatever the Vethrak ascendancy decided to do next, and they would decide something, because predators always do, they would make that decision knowing something they had not known when they arrived in the Karath corridor. The prey they'd chosen had eyes in the dark and patience, and the discipline to hold still until the moment was right. That was the first contact. Not the hail, not the shot, not the strike package. The moment they understood what they were actually looking at. I pulled my helmet off and handed it to the crew chief, and went below to write my report.